Okay. So, was the discussion about aspiration helpful? Yeah. I think it's quite an interesting topic because probably not, how much have we actually consciously sat down and thought, what do I aspire for in my spiritual practice? And I mean, of course, there's the general aspirations, attain awakening. But yeah, besides that, there's nothing besides that. But, to refine that a bit and what specific things do we want to kind of specialize in? And then what aspirations do we have for this life? Now, what do we want to attain in this life? Regarding that, it's not, I wouldn't advise saying, I want to attain path of seeing this life. Don't set that kind of goal or, a specific stage of the path, because that, that's kind of setting you up for pressurizing yourself. But rather, what kind of qualities do I want to develop, and what kind of practices really help me develop those qualities? And, what particular beings do I feel a karmic connection with and want to be of service to? Yeah. Besides all the people we're attached to. They don't come in that, okay? So if your aspirations are, I want to help my mother and my father and my husband and my wife and my dogs and children and stuff like that, that's not the kind of aspirations we're talking about, okay? Yeah. Okay. There was a question here. Do good resolutions or actions need to be witnessed by other humans or other living beings in order to be efficacious, or is there any difference in effect by so being? So, the aspirations that we make in the context of bodhisattva practice, where we're really making an unshakable resolve, it probably starts in our own practice, and then we make it, we verbalize it in the presence of our spiritual mentors or our teachers. But that's probably a more advanced level than, I don't know, your realizations, but mine are zero. And, for me to do that would just not be right. Okay, I make the aspirations inside my own mind because I know that I'm still practicing. Circumstances change, and I may wind up doing different things than I had planned and so on, because when you're practicing under your teacher's guidance, sometimes your teacher asks you to do this or go here or do that or whatever. So, you have to have an element of flexibility in your aspirations. So I think start out with making them in your own practice. And then, when you can, make them with your teacher. Of course, it depends what your aspirations are. You can tell from Medicine Buddha's aspirations that they're really, they're quite intense, and it is an unshakable resolve. And an unshakable resolve is different than an aspiration. Okay? Because we have aspirations, but we often don't think, what qualities do I need to develop to fulfill those aspirations? We think, oh, gee, I would like to, who knows what, open a Dharma center in Beijing. Yeah. And maybe you aspire to do that, but you probably don't want to vocalize that at that point. It's probably not an unshakable resolve. And what you have to do is then start to think, well, if I want to do that, what practical causes do I need to create to do that? And what causes in my own mind, what attributes or qualities in my own mind do I need to develop? Yeah. And then see if we want to put the time and energy into actually developing those qualities and actually following up on the practical things that you want to do. Okay, because if you're going to actualize those aspirations, you know, you might say, I want to open a Buddhist publishing house, yeah, and print Dharma books for free distribution and send them all over the world. Wonderful aspiration. Fantastic. Okay. So you have to think, well, do I have the qualities to be a publisher? And who else do I need to help me? And what qualities do I know anything about publishing books? And, what about the finances? Where are the finances from this going to come from? And where are we going to be located? And, that kind of stuff is quite important. Yeah. Otherwise, we have aspirations and we take 2 steps towards fulfilling them. And then we say, this entails a lot more than I thought about. And so, forget it. Yeah. So we don't want to, sometimes we find ourselves in that situation, but it's good to think ahead so that we don't find ourselves in that situation. I mean, it's the same when you are planning what work you want to do or what kind of career you want to have. You need to think about the practical aspects and what it entails and, what you're inclined towards. Generate your motivation. Okay. So we've been talking about the 6 perfections, and he did the first 4 rather quickly, and then the 5th one, concentration, he's been taking quite a bit of time with. And, one of the important aspects of concentration is cutting down on distractions. And even it can be quite a chore sometimes to get ourselves to the cushion. Yeah, many people tell me that it's hard for them just to sit down and do their practice. This is one of the benefits of living in a community, is that there's a community schedule and everybody at least is supposed to follow it. But what makes this schedule easy is, everybody's basically doing the same thing at the same time. So you don't have to think, what should I do or where shall I go? This is where everybody's going. This is what everybody's doing. So it kind of streamlines your life, and you don't have so many, things. Well, should I do this first? Should I do that first? It's this time and you do whatever. And the whole community is doing it. And if you aren't there, then people are going to wonder, are you sick? What's happening? And so somebody's going to have to go looking for you. And, this has happened. And, we're planning for an event and the person who's supposed to be doing something isn't there. And everybody's going, where are they? And what do we do? And so, it's very helpful if you're part of that community. You get there and do what you're supposed to be doing. And if you can't, then you tell somebody. Okay. In the absence of that, if you're living at home and, you have a family or whatever, then it's good to coordinate with some other Dharma friends and do your meditation at the same time. So Kathy has organized that. Do you want to explain for a minute what you're doing? And this is a really good thing that she's done. And many people have said that it's really helping their practice because it gets you to the cushion together with other people at a certain time.
Yeah, so there's a group that every morning at 5:30 Pacific, 6:30 Mountain, we get on Zoom together and we do all of the morning practices for an hour and a half from 6:30 to 8, at least my time in Salt Lake. So we do exactly what the monastics are doing here, and then we do the Buddha practice or the Tara practice or another practice. And everyone's invited, and please join us when you can. And then we also have a group that meets at 7 p.m. Mountain Time or 6 o'clock Pacific, 5 days a week. So we meet all but Fridays when there's already teachings and Sundays. So we meet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday evenings at 7 o'clock Mountain. And if there's information on the website, you can email me and I'll get you the password, but we'd love to have you join us for the practices. It's changed my entire practice. I was here 2 years ago at a retreat and just felt like I couldn't keep it up as I go home. And so I got a group together, and now we've been doing it for 2 years, and there are some of us that have been there every morning for 2 years. So please join if you would like.
Yeah. And several of the people who have been at different retreats and courses since then have joined the group. Because after the course, they say, this was wonderful, but what do I do now? And how do I keep it up? And so this is a really good way to do that. And I think every Saturday, one of the monastics leads.
I was just going to add that piece, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Abbey now leads on Saturday mornings. And then we also do, because tomorrow is an 8 precept day, we also do the 8 precepts together.
Oh, good.
So just send out a special email and we'll remind you the day before. And we meet at half an hour earlier on those days, and we all take the 8 precepts together as well.
Yeah. And what's nice is because people are doing the pretty much the same practice that we're doing here at the same time. And so people say it really helps them feel connected to the Abbey and the community here. So we have people from many different places.
Yeah, we have people all over the world that join us at whatever time it is for them. Some of them it's at night when we're in the morning, and sometimes in the night it's their morning. But yeah, we have people from all over the world that join. It's a really great community.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So so we need the support from Dharma friends. Some people are very self-motivated and have very good self-discipline and, can organize their practice on their own. And other people find that it's just so much easier to have other friends that they do their practice with. Yeah. Before this group got organized a long time ago, two of the people who came to retreats, they would call each other in the morning. This was before Zoom. So, they would call each other in the morning, just check in, do a few prayers, put the phone down, and then have silent meditation. As there was a timer, when the timer rang, then they picked the phone up and they dedicated the merit together. Yeah. And they both really like that, because it's also, not only does it help us do our practice, but we make Dharma friends. And it's really important to have Dharma friends, because our Dharma friends understand what is important to us in our life in a way that our other friends have a difficult time doing. Yeah. So it's important to create those kind of friendships. And also because with our Dharma friends, if something's going on in our practice and we need some help, we can talk with them about it because they understand and they're trying to do the same thing. And that's also a reason why we have the discussion groups here, is because when you hear from other people how they're solving different problems and issues that come up in their practice, it gives you ideas of what to do yourself. Yeah. So, this kind of thing, it's important. Yeah. Many people have told me they go to work and their colleagues say, "Oh, what did you do on your vacation?" And they say, "Oh, I went to a meditation retreat." And they have a very, very large variety of responses. Some people say, "Oh, tell me about that. That sounds interesting." Other people say, "You went to a what? And you sat and looked at your belly button for a week? Why didn't you go to the Bahamas or go skiing or go to, and enjoy yourself and relax?" Yeah. So, depending upon the kinds of responses you get from the people around you, it's really nice having people who understand what your life is about. Yeah. That's why the Buddha organized the community. The Sangha is meant to be a community. Yeah. Okay. So yesterday we talked about who to marry. Yeah. And the qualities of a good wife. She's like a sister and a maid and a mother, and then you worship her like a family god. Okay. Yeah. And we talked about attachment to food. And, that verse that we recite every day, and to really remind ourselves that we're eating not to gain strength so we can defeat our enemies, and not to become good looking, and not just for pleasure, but to keep our body alive because we need this life. And to have this life, we need the precious human, the body. And so we have to protect it. Yeah. So, and eating well is one way to protect our body. And so it also reminds us, to eat nourishing food and try and, keep our body healthy, because it's not just for our own benefit. We're trying to practice to benefit all beings. Yeah. So, when you don't feel guilty about eating, you need to eat. Yeah. Otherwise, how are you going to stay alive? Yeah. But also we don't indulge and, create bad eating habits. Yeah.
I think without anger, I also understand that, like, one could eat with anger out of frustration, or one could be angry with the cook, how the food is proceeded, and that made, and that could also be a hindrance for future, so that we will not receive food. And when I think about the Buddha's time, going for alms, and you react with anger how the food has been made for you, forget about it. So I think also in that way you can interpret it.
Yeah, at the time of the Buddha, the monastics went on pindapat, which means they had an alms bowl. That's why we have our bowls. And they would go into a village. They do not beg. Some people translate it as the monastics begging with a begging bowl. It is not begging. You do not say anything. You hold your bowl, and then, people who want to give put food in the bowl. If they don't give, then you went on to the next house, and like that. So it wasn't asking people for anything. But this was very much part of the Indian culture, and I think it's very much part of the culture, for example, in Thailand, isn't it? The monks and nuns go out in the morning, and people are ready with food to give them, and because they create merit when they do this. Some friends of mine, monastics in Portland, they would go out on pindapat. I joined them once or twice, but they had to organize it and put. They went down the street in Portland, but they had to give letters to all the different businesses beforehand and post things on the street because otherwise, people think that they're begging and, you're dressed in your robes and it's like, who are these people? And some people told us when they did that, they had to go and get a parade permit at the city government because they were walking in a single line, with their bowls. So we've never done that in Newport. Yeah, huh? Not yet. Yeah, it might be good to start in Spokane or Seattle, in a larger place. And nowadays, sometimes what my Theravada friends do is they notify all their supporters in advance of what time and where they're going to be, and then they do that. That's kind of cheating a little bit, because you're supposed to really go out and just accept what people give you with a sense of gratitude without saying, I like this and I don't like that, and give me more of this and give me less of that. Okay, so the whole reason that it was set up like this is, not only as an exchange between the monastics and the lay people, because when the lay people give food, then the monastics would say a blessing, or give a teaching. When you were invited for a meal, then you gave a teaching afterwards, and that benefited the people. So it's part of this economy of generosity, everybody giving different things from their own heart. And so part of it was that, and part of it was for the monastics just to learn to accept whatever they were given with appreciation. Yeah. And so that's why, for example, in the Theravada tradition as practiced in Southeast Asia, they will eat meat because that's what the lay people prepare, and you're supposed to accept what you are given like that. In the Chinese Mahayana tradition, then it is vegetarian. So that, not all of them go on pindapat because you're not always given the kind of food that you can eat. And also because historically in China, the Sangha didn't want to get involved in all the political things going on in the cities. So they went out and lived in the countryside on their own. And that's where you get the Chan or Zen thing about chop wood, carry water, because they had to prepare all the food and grow it themselves and prepare it themselves. Yeah. In the Tibetan tradition, they had huge monasteries, and it would have overwhelmed the city, and the towns if they had all gone in for Pindapat. So sometimes people brought food to the monasteries, and sometimes the monastics bought the food and prepared it themselves. Okay, so there's different traditions in different countries and different kinds of Buddhism. But the thing is to work with the mind around food. And then we also talked about attachment to sleep, and kind of when we feel low energy or we're depressed or whatever, let's go sleep. Yeah, we feel bored, let's go to sleep. So, we're advised here, actually the way Nagarjuna sets it up, you only sleep 4 hours a night, which for some people, it would be very hard for them to function the next day. But it's interesting to experiment with how much sleep you need. In the summer, do you need as much sleep as you need in the winter? Yeah, because in the summer, the sun is up earlier. It's probably easier to get up. Just the whole feeling is different than in the winter and it's cold. Okay, so to really see, what we need, and then, try when we go to sleep to have a peaceful mind. So this is the benefit of, before you go to sleep, to doing some purification practice. So reviewing the day, and if there's things that you've done that you feel good about, to rejoice and dedicate the merit. And if there's things that you've done that you don't feel so good about, or that contradicted your precepts or your values, then to do purification practice. And in that way, you kind of settle everything during the day. So when you go to sleep, you're not carrying things along with you. Because we all know that when you go to sleep and you're irritated, you wake up irritated, and sometimes even angrier than when you were merely irritated before. Yeah. So it's really good to take that time in the evening. And if your mind is upset about something, to really apply one of the Dharma antidotes to deal with that particular affliction, so that when you go to sleep, your mind is calmer, and then you sleep well and you wake up refreshed. Yeah. Sometimes an affliction may be really intense and you can't completely settle it before you go to bed, but you do your best. And then when you get up in the morning, you do some more practice focused on, that particular affliction. Okay, so that was verse 39. Now, verse 40 is practicing the 4 immeasurables as an aid to concentration. So the verse for the 4 immeasurables reads, "Constantly and perfectly reflect on love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And should you not attain the higher state, at least you will find bliss in Brahma's world." Okay, so what this is saying is these 4 immeasurable qualities are often used as the object of meditation when you're developing concentration. And you're using them to develop concentration, but they alone will not bring you to liberation or awakening. We have to have the wisdom realizing emptiness. But so it says here, should you not attain the higher state, in other words, liberation or awakening, at least you can be born in Brahma's world. So Brahma, when we talk about the form realm, remember there was the desire realm, the form realm, the formless realm. In the form realm, there's 4 dhyanas, or 4 stages in it. And Brahma is in the first one. And there's 3 subdivisions of Brahma here and 3 subdivisions of Brahma, the second one, 3 of the third one, and several more of the fourth one, because there's 5 kind of gated communities in the fourth dhyana. One's gated communities in the sense that they're only for Arya beings, not for ordinary beings. Okay. So, for some people, they use these 4 immeasurables as objects of meditation to develop concentration. Very often in the Mahayana practice, you use these 4 immeasurables for that purpose, but also to really increase your bodhicitta. Yeah. And so they're very effective for that, because if we're going to generate the motivation to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, we've got to have love, compassion, joy, and equanimity regarding them. We can't have, aggravation and frustration and fear and threat. That's not going to work to generate bodhicitta. So they're called the 4 immeasurables, or sometimes the 4 boundless ones. They're immeasurable because each of these 4 qualities, we, at the extent of the practice, we may start out small, but as we expand the practice, we want to generate them for an immeasurable number of beings. Okay. And the amount of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity we generate for them, we also want that to be immeasurable or boundless. Okay, so these practices are very, very expansive. When you're generating bodhicitta, and there's 2 modes of generating bodhicitta. Both of them, incorporate these 4 attitudes towards other living beings, because they may not be labeled as a specific stage in that method of generating bodhicitta, but the meaning is very much present. Okay. If you want more information or detail about this, Volume 5 in Praise of Great Compassion, which is in our Dharma book room, that goes into the 4 immeasurables and the methods to generate bodhicitta in great detail. Yeah. And that volume, I've gotten really a lot of good feedback on. People like that volume a lot. And it was one of my favorite ones to write. Okay. So to explain what these are, there's various ways to see them. I'll talk a little bit about some of the ways to see them. Okay, we'll see how we go. So one way is to have it, as you, these attitudes, as you cultivate them in your daily life towards different people in different situations. So love is the first one when we list the 4 immeasurables. So if you make that your general MO of being, how do you treat all living beings? And here, love means friendliness, okay? It means having a positive attitude. It means wishing people well, okay? So if we can cultivate that attitude of wishing others well and have that be the way that we greet every living being, no matter who it is, think about that and how that would change your life. Okay, so that means that every living being you start out with a feeling of familiarity with. You don't start out with a feeling of suspicion. Are they going to help me? Are they going to harm me? Who is this person? Are they going to discriminate against me? Yeah. Are they going to beat me up? Are they going to rape me? Are they going to be kind? You know, you don't start out like that. You start out with, here's a living being who wants happiness, and I wish them well, and I wish them happiness. So this is kind of when His Holiness Dalai Lama says that's how he regards everybody as a friend. This is what he's talking about. Yeah, cultivating that attitude. So to cultivate this, we can't just sit there and say, I should wish everybody well. I'm supposed to wish everybody well. Yes, I love these people. You know, you can't tell yourself what to feel. So this is where the meditation on seeing the kindness of others is very helpful. Yeah. And so we talked about that briefly. I want to talk about it some more because I think this is a really important meditation. I know it's been for me, and it's solved a lot of my problems, actually, focusing on this meditation on the kindness of others. So it's easy, you know, you may start with thinking of the kindness of your friends and relatives, because that's fairly easy to do, because these are people who help us. Yeah, usually, not always. I mean, friends usually help us. Relatives, it could be a different story. Yeah, but at least with friends, you know, these people wish us well. They want to help us. Like I said, sometimes they want to help us in a way that takes us away from the Dharma, away from our spiritual practice. And when that happens, then they're no longer good friends, you know. But in general, you know, we try and choose good people to be friends. So that part's easy. With our relatives, it can be difficult. Yeah. We often talk about friends, strangers, and enemies. And with some people, the enemy category has quite a number of relatives in it. Okay. So you need to deal with that. I think it's very, very important. And like I mentioned the other day, especially with our parents, to really have a sense of accepting them and appreciating what they did do for us without expecting them to be perfect parents. Because remember, they were born in certain historical times, you know, in certain socioeconomic conditions, with certain pressures on them from their family, from the situation of the world. Yeah. And so it wasn't like they just came into the world and and everything was fresh. In the same way, when we were born, from the very get-go, we've been influenced by what's going on in the world. Yeah. And, you know, each generation has particular things that are going on that really are right in their face as you're growing up. So to look at your parents and realize, you know, they were dealing with that. They also had their own health problems. Yeah. They may have had financial problems. They may have had their own self-esteem problems. They may have had their own anger problems or alcohol problems or what it is, you know. So to see them as living beings who mean well, yeah, but were not perfect and had their own set of problems. Okay. And this can take quite a bit of meditation, depending on where your attitude towards your family is right now. Yeah, because often we have, Oh, we have our dream childhood of what we would have liked. Yeah. And this is so much emphasized by the culture. Yeah. And it's really not very practical. Yeah. So for example, just if I give my situation, my grandparents were refugees coming to this country. So the job of my parents was to get the American dream. That's what they were focused on. Yeah. Surviving in this country, getting the American dream. They grew up during the Depression. Yeah. They came of age at the beginning of World War II. Yeah. And had to deal with World War II and the Korean War. Yeah. Then it was the Eisenhower era where all of a sudden everything's booming, and you're supposed to recover from the war and then, have your white picket fence around your house. And, and then they had health problems. And my dad slipped a disc. They moved from Chicago out to the West Coast. There was no family there. My dad slipped a disc. He couldn't work. They had their own set of things going on. And despite this, when I looked at how they brought me up, they wanted their kids to have everything that they didn't have growing up. And they did their best to give that to us. Yeah. And then they had a daughter like me who didn't necessarily want all the things that they wanted to give me. Yeah. But they meant well, and they went out of their way to save money so we could have a good education, and so on and so forth. So I can also list to you all the things that I don't like about how I grew up. But to me now, that's all useless. To dwell on those things is really useless because, the bottom line was, they gave me a body, they kept me alive, they made sure I got an education. Yeah. There was a relatively good family life compared to what, other people go through. And yeah. And here I am, and I'm quite happy with my life. And it came in big quantities because of the way they brought me up and the values they instilled. So it works much better to look at the positive things people did for us, especially family members, rather than just to harp on, they didn't, they were overprotective and they did this and they did that and then they didn't understand me and da. Okay. So, so that's just my own experience. As a teenager and a young adult, all those problems, I complained a lot about them. And then, like I mentioned the other day, I had to accept my parents for who they were. And once I did that, it really helped a lot. Okay, so we start out, we see the kindness of friends, kindness of relatives. Then we move on to the kindness of strangers. So the person at the gas station, the person in the grocery store, the trash collectors, the people at the county where you have to apply for building permits, the engineer, all sorts of different people, the construction guys on the road, the people who, when our electricity goes out, when there's a snowstorm and wind, and it's dark and the electricity goes out, the linemen from PUD who go out in that weather and, get the lines working again so that our electricity goes back on. Okay, so all these people that, whose lives, whose efforts we depend on. And now with globalization, I mean, people in Bangladesh who make our clothes, in China who make, our what do you call them? Devices, in Mexico who make parts of our cars, all over the place. It's very interesting. When you buy stuff, read where it was made and think of the way people in those countries live. And in many of the countries, the people are exploited. And, like I mentioned Bangladesh because, certain clothing things were made in Bangladesh. And then we read about fires in the clothing factories, in the sweatshops, is what they basically are, and in Bangladesh. And, these are the conditions those people live in. Just to make the clothes I wear, and I don't even know them, and to thank them. And they're not the people who really get paid the money for their effort. It's usually the people who own the businesses who wind up with super big bonuses, and more money than they know what to do with, who make the profit. But I like at least in my heart to think of those people and to thank them for what they do. Because otherwise, I wouldn't have the various things that I wear. They don't make robes in Bangladesh. But, the fabric, comes from them, or it comes from India. Okay. Then to also think of the kindness of the enemy, the people that threaten us, either personally or as a society. So whoever it is that you feel threatened by or fearful of, if it's ISIS, if it's, Al Qaeda, yeah, or if it's some person who abused you years ago, or somebody who beat you up when you were a kid, or who knows what. So, or even somebody that you're competing with in your position at work, or somebody who doesn't really value you at your work, yeah, or somebody who talks bad about you behind your back, to really think about those people as, they want happiness and they don't want suffering. They're doing what they're doing in an attempt to be happy. And to remember that if we meet those people in a different situation, we could wind up being friends with them. Because these three categories of friend, enemy, and stranger are not fixed and solid. They change all the time, depending on circumstances. Don't they? Yeah. Who is still friends with people you knew in first grade? 2 people, 3 people, yeah, 4 people, okay. For the rest of us, our best friends in first grade have become strangers. Okay. How many people who you knew in first grade have become enemies? Maybe second grade they threw sand at you, or junior high school they talked behind your back. Yeah. How many people who you didn't like when you were little did you later become friends with? Yeah. And how many people who you didn't get along with when you were little became strangers? And how many strangers later became friends? And how many strangers later became enemies? Yeah. So these 3 categories are not hard and fast. So it's very important that we do not put people in the categories, assign them that label, that definition, and then say that's who they always are. That's how I always am going to feel about them. That's how I'm always going to relate to them, and forget it. Okay? Because if we go through our whole lives and every time somebody does something we don't like, we throw them in the enemy category, what are we going to wind up with when we're older? a very full enemy category and a very empty friend category. And who's going to suffer because of that? Yeah. Okay, so, to see these things are changing. And also to really see, I mentioned this before, that the enemies challenge us in a way that can make us really grow if we're smart about the situation. Yeah. And if you look back about difficulties you've gone through in your life, yeah, just think off the top of your head some difficulty you went through. Yeah. Have you grown because of that problem? Yeah. Did you find resources in yourself that you didn't know you had to deal with it? Yeah. So that growth that we go through, even though it may be difficult, we have to thank the enemy for providing that situation and challenging us. Because if they didn't do that, we would have just coasted along in our very complacent way and probably become spoiled brats. But, those people challenge us, and we have to rise to the occasion, and we grow because of it. Okay? So learning also to appreciate the enemies. And I don't know about you, but I've had several times, people who just made me totally miserable come and apologize afterwards. Yeah. And regardless of whether they apologized or didn't apologize, I had to work on my feelings towards them, because it was quite obvious that if I just kept a negative attitude, I was going to be the one who suffered and was limited by that, not them. Okay, so we really have to think of the kindness of the enemy. It sounds crazy, but it's really true, I think. Yeah. Okay, so love is the basic way that we deal with people. Yeah. We start out without judgments and just with an open heart. May they be happy. May they be well. Okay. Then, when we find that these people have problems and they're suffering, generate compassion for them. Okay? So, because love wants people to have happiness in its causes, compassion wants them to be free of suffering in its causes. Yeah, so when those people meet difficulties or health problems or who knows what, you have compassion. Yeah? When they are successful in what they're doing, then we have joy. We cultivate joy. Yeah. This joy is rejoicing. We feel happy at other people's good opportunities, at their virtue, at their good qualities. Yeah. So this kind of rejoicing is the antidote to jealousy. Of course, when you're jealous, the last thing you want to do for the people you're jealous for is to rejoice at their happiness. Because when you're jealous, you don't want them to be happy because we're jealous and we deserve the good quality, the kindness, the opportunity, much more than those people. Yeah. Oh, I can't stand them. Yeah. So to learn to rejoice at the people who are better than us, to learn to rejoice at the people who have opportunities that we don't have. Yeah. it hurts even to say that, doesn't it? Yeah, when you think of the opportunities you want and then, there's somebody in your way to learn to rejoice. It's hard. Or, you're facing discrimination because of your gender or your race or your religion or your nationality or your sexual orientation or who knows what. Yeah. And you're facing discrimination, and then to rejoice at the people who have that opportunity that you don't have. That sounds impossible. Okay. So in those situations, I'm not saying that we just say, well, it's all okay. Things are not equal in the country. I accept that. No, you have to speak out. Yeah, because it's not only your problem, it's the problem of many people. So we have to, work to correct societal injustices. But to do that without spite, without belligerence, without wanting, hatred or wanting to deprive other people of what they have. Yeah. But more with an attitude of, let's all prosper together. That's a hard attitude to come by, because when we feel resentful, well, we all know what resentment feels like. You resent people because it's unfair. Yeah, and why should they have that and I don't? And, what we're jealous of, could be anything. Yeah, they're better athletes than we are. They're better looking than we are. They passed the exam with a higher score than we passed it. They got the promotion. They got the job. Who knows what? Yeah. They married the person I wanted to marry. Who knows? We can be jealous of anything. Yeah. But to really learn, just, rejoice. Somebody is happy. Yeah. My big jealousy thing was, I have a few of them, but one of them was my friends who learned Tibetan and I didn't. Yeah. And how come they had the perfect opportunity to learn Tibetan? And I had all these hindrances. When I had a teacher, I didn't have a visa. When I had a visa, I didn't have a teacher. Then I had both, I didn't have money. And then this and that. And, I never had the perfect condition to learn Tibetan. And all these other friends learned Tibetan. And now I have to ask them for help. And I feel so ashamed. Like I said, you can be jealous of anything. So, one of my big things was, to learn to rejoice at the people who spoke Tibetan when I didn't. Yeah. Now, many of you probably don't have that jealousy. Yeah. Maybe you're jealous of somebody who speaks Swahili. I don't know. Or some other thing. Yeah. But we all have our thing, and to really be able to rejoice that there are people who are better than us. Yeah. Or even in the same field that we're doing, whatever your field is, that there are people who are better than you. And to learn to say, wow, actually, that's very good. Because if I were the best in this world would be in a very bad state. Okay? If I were the best one, forget about not knowing Tibetan. Yeah, I don't know anything about electricity except how to turn on the light switch. I don't know anything about plumbing except I also know how to change a light bulb. I don't know anything about plumbing except how to flush the toilet. Yeah. There's so many things. I don't know anything about car mechanics except to ask somebody else for help. There's so many things that I don't know, that if I were the best one in the world, we would all be living like Neanderthals. Okay. So I'm quite happy there are people who are better than me. So it takes some practice to get your mind to think like that, and not just think like that intellectually, but really in your heart to say, I'm glad, I rejoice at their opportunities. Yeah. Too many stories to tell regarding this one. I will spare you. Okay, but, our life is one big opportunity to practice, isn't it? Okay, so our MO is loving kindness, friendliness. When those people suffer, we have compassion. When they're successful, we rejoice. Okay? And then the equanimity one, there's different situations in which it can be. When those people are doing well, like, for example, if you did the 4 immeasurables in terms of raising a child, you love the child, you have compassion when they're suffering, you rejoice when they ace their spelling test in 1st grade, okay? And then when they grow up and they don't want to listen to you, and you have advice for them and they are independent and they don't want to hear your advice, you practice equanimity. Or another situation in which you practice equanimity is they grow up and they're doing very well and they don't need any advice. So you rejoice that they're doing very well and you have equanimity, and don't give them any further advice. Okay. So lots of times in our efforts to be of benefit to sentient beings, we try and help and people don't want our help. Yeah. Lots of you here work in helping professions. Yeah. And you give people advice and then they don't follow it. Yeah. You're an educator and you try and tell them what they need to study and learn. Yeah, in one ear, out the other. You are a healthcare professional. You give them advice about being healthy. They don't do it. Yeah. You're a family member and somebody, a good friend or another family member has an addiction problem, some kind of substance abuse problem. You try and help. They tell you to go away. Okay, so those are the situations where you really need equanimity. Yeah, you don't hate the person, you don't get mad at them, you don't sit there and pout, I am trying to help you and you are being so rude and you're not listening. And I have such a good heart towards you, can't you see how much I wish you well? You say it in that tone of voice, yeah. What message do they hear? Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to help you and, you're just messing up your life. You're screwing everything up. Yeah. So it could be to your sibling. You could be for your parent. Your parents aren't doing what you want them to do. Yeah. It's hot outside and they still go outside and work in the garden. Don't they know any better? They're your parents and they should, Or they want to drive. Oh, God. Have you ever tried to get your parents to stop driving? Okay. But of course, we're not going to be like that when we get older. We're going to be very rational and reasonable, and when we're too old to drive, we will voluntarily hand back the keys. we're not going to be like our parents who say, but I'm an independent adult and I've driven for more years than you have. And I know what I'm doing and I see perfectly well. Yeah. So, yeah. And, to be able to have equanimity in those situations and not get angry at them because we know what is best for them. Don't you love it when we know what other people should do and they don't do it? Of course, when other people know what we should do and tell us, what do we say to them? Or what gesture do we give them? We don't want to listen. But we expect them to listen to us. That's unfair. Okay. Now, granted, if one of your parents is really dangerous in the car, then you have to be very creative. Yeah. You call the DMV. You call the DMV and you say, my mom or dad is coming in for a test. They really don't drive very well. Please, don't renew their license. And you don't make a recording of that phone call, because if they find out, they're going to be really mad. But you do it out of compassion because you don't want them to get killed or to kill somebody else. Yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult. Okay? So, love, compassion, joy or rejoicing, and then equanimity. Mm-hmm. When we develop bodhicitta, and we're practicing either the 7-point cause and effect method for developing bodhicitta, or the equalizing and exchanging self and other method for developing bodhicitta, we first develop equanimity. And equanimity there means that you're impartial towards friends and enemies. And I throw strangers in there too. The book just says friends and enemies, but I think it's important to put strangers in. Okay? Or at least for me, it's important. So there, what you're trying to do is have an impartial attitude towards everybody, because if you have an impartial attitude, then it becomes easy to cultivate love for them, easy to cultivate compassion, easy to cultivate joy. If we don't have equanimity, then it's only easy to cultivate love for the people we like who help us. Okay? And it's difficult to cultivate the other 3 immeasurables towards other people. Okay, because we have attachment and anger. Attachment for friends, anger for people we don't get along with, and then indifference, we just don't care about everybody else. So when our mind is, overwhelmed by those 3 kind of emotions towards other people, difficult to wish them well. Yeah. So that's why equanimity is really, really important. And one way that I have found to create equanimity, one way I just explained to you by seeing how those 3 categories, how they change all the time, that nothing is fixed, in them. The person who's a friend one day is an enemy the next, and vice versa. But another way that I find very effective is to see that it is my mind that creates the categories of friend, enemy, and stranger. my usual way of looking at things is I say, this person is a nice person from their own side. Okay, having nothing to do with anybody else or me, but they're like a really nice person. They go in the friend category. This person is a total jerk. Yeah, inherently a jerk. He goes in the enemy category. Everybody else, I don't really give a hoot about. They go in the apathy, stranger category. Okay. When you look and examine, why do I put people in the friend, enemy, and stranger category? It comes out because of how they relate to me. The people who help me are inherently good and kind people, inherently friends. People who are mean to me, inherent enemies. They're awful, stupid, ridiculous people in the enemy category. Everybody else, I don't know. I haven't put them in either category. Okay? But to watch how in our lives, we're the ones who categorize people. It's not coming from their side. Because the person who's nice to us is mean to somebody else. Okay? And we can see some people, they're nice to me and they're mean to my enemy. That means they're good people, they're smart. But if they're nice to me and they help my enemy, then actually they become enemies themselves because they become really stupid. They don't see that that person's an enemy. They join the enemies and betray me. Okay? Whereas the person who is kind to my enemy, they have a kind side. They're showing their kindness to the person that I don't like. Doesn't matter. Their kindness matters for nothing. They're still an enemy. Okay. If they change the object of their kindness, and instead of being kind to the person I don't like, they're kind to me, then they become a friend. Their quality of kindness is the same. The difference is, who do they show it towards? If they show it towards me, they're a good person. They show it towards somebody I don't like, they're an awful person. Okay? I create all of this. And it's all based on me. Yeah. Why me? Because I just happen to be the center of the universe, the most important one alive, who should always be happy, who should always be treated fairly, who always should have the best thing, who always should be respected, who never should be blamed, because I am only good inside. Yeah. Until I get mad at myself, and then I am only bad and I have absolutely no redeeming qualities. But for right now, we're leaving that part out. Okay? And this is the self-centered mind. I am the best. I deserve everything. If your kindness is shown towards me, you're a good person. If your meanness is shown towards me, you're a bad person. That's it. It's very simple. Yeah? And every time we have a disagreement, the resolution is very simple. Now, whenever I'm mad, because you did something, I didn't do anything. You did something to cause this problem. Yeah, the solution is very simple. I am right, you are wrong, and you change. Isn't that the way we think? I'm right, you're wrong, you better get used to it. Change. Because I'm always right. I would never be wrong. And I always have to win the argument. I am not a loser, said the great big loser. Yeah. Yeah. We understand him, don't we? I'm never a loser. I always am going to win. Except when I can't win and I lose, and then I have a fit. Because it's unfair. Isn't it? The world is unfair when I, can't get my way. Yeah, and this started out when we were kids. And then as we grew older, we learned to mask it and to pretend that we are nice, kind, polite adults. But we still have the same ideas. Yeah. It's really something. I mean, it's like we have to laugh at ourselves, don't we? How we are sometimes is so stupid. Yeah. And so think of the people that you put in the enemy box, and why are they in the enemy box? We look at them as if they have absolutely no redeeming qualities. But when I'm honest and I look at the people in my enemy box, it's usually because of one small situation. Yeah, that they did that I didn't like. And that, when I looked at them, then that is who they are as a person. That is their value as a human being. Okay, so one time, somebody canceled me and a friend. We were supposed to give a presentation at a conference, and the organizer canceled us at the last minute. Yeah, for that time afterwards, that person was, for in my eyes, he was just completely disgusting, over some decision and something he said to me that took about a minute. But in my mind, because he did something I didn't like and canceled our presentation, he was blacklisted forever. Yeah? And then, of course, you sit down and you have to look at your own mind. And, when you see, when you're looking at people like that in such black and white categories, and you're willing to put somebody in a box and throw away the key, and this is what society does with people who are incarcerated. Yeah, society says, you have no redeeming value. You can't be rehabilitated. You're not worth anything. And that's simply not true. But we also do it. Society does that to some people, but we do it to different people on a personal level. And it's just as ridiculous when we do it. Because that's not the whole value of somebody's life, the way they treated me for 1 minute or 5 minutes or even 3 days. That's not the whole value of their life as a living being. Okay? And so to realize that we create those categories, so we're the ones who have to dismantle those categories. Yeah? And begin to really wish everybody well with love, to wish them to be free from suffering with compassion. Mm-hmm. So we have some work to do. Yeah. Okay. So we didn't get quite up to the place where I had gotten after 2 years before. We almost did. Yeah, we almost did. But actually, we're at a good stopping place here. So, because then next year we can start more specifically with the concentrations and how to develop them. Okay.